like that. We use do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and do to explain intervals. Now what that actually is a major scale. If we did play do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do like this, that is actually a major scale. So from the concepts we have already learned, being intervals and chords, the scales use the same theory, except chords are notes played at the same time, scales are notes played one after the other. The first scale we're going to learn is the major scale, which, as I said, is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Now the way to learn that is the same as we did chords. We take each note in the scale, which will be, if we work it from C, it goes C, whole step to D, whole step to E, half step to F, whole step to G, whole step to A, whole step to B, half step to C. Okay, that's your major scale. If we were to relate it to intervals, it would go 1, major second, major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, major 7, octave. We can continue up the strings of the guitar to include some more of the notes, so we in the next octave. So it goes like this. Now I went up 2 octaves. The notes are still the same, still C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. In a similar way that we did the caged rule, what we did was we found all the notes in C major, the chord, and put it onto the neck. Found all of them all the way up the neck. We do the same thing with the major scale, and we find all the notes in C major, and we find them across the neck. And what we find is that C major follows the same rule as the chords, because if I play C major scale, I'll start on F because I want to include all the notes, not because it's the starting note or the root, because the root is actually C. We know we're in C major, so we're going to play starting from F, C major scale. Ending on the root. Now, that corresponds to the chord shape, the A shape. So now if we've learned the caged rule, and we know that this shape corresponds with the A shape, it's very easy to find the scale that fits with the shape, because we know that's the shape, the root will be there, which is C, and the scale follows. It's very easy to find once you've learnt it. Okay, so this is the shape. As the diagram suggests, 1 is your first finger, 2 is your second finger, 3 is your third finger, 4 is your fourth finger, going like this. 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, or 3, 4. You have an option of using whichever finger you feel more comfortable with. Okay, and returning back down. Okay, so now that is C major scale using the A shape. As I suggested before, and as you can see in the diagram, there are 5 shapes. I'll just run through them quickly. It's a good idea to stop the tape and learn those patterns, or at least familiarize yourself with them so that you can continue to understand what I'm going to be talking about after this. So I'll run through them and I'll show you how they work with the caged rule. First one will be, as we've been doing, the A shape and the major scale starting on F. The root, called the A shape. Let's go in the caged rule. What follows the A shape is the G shape. Okay, now we will add the notes to the scale, as can be seen in the diagram. There's your root. Back to your root and the chord shape. So that's the major scale. The root will be C, and the shape we are using is the G shape. What follows the G is the E, C-A-G-E. The root will be, now you'll notice I go from the E shape, I use my second finger for the root, because I need to grab that note there, which is the 7th. Right, so we'll go up the scale. That's the root, that's the chord shape. and so on. The next shape is the D shape. What follows the D shape is the C shape. And that goes like this. And there's the C shape. What follows the C? The A again. So we just repeat the pattern that we did on the first fret. We go, it's exactly the same pattern. You'll see if I take that back all the way back to the first position again, it's exactly the same pattern. Okay, so we have 5 patterns for the major scale. Now once you've learned those 5 patterns, you can play in any key, anywhere on the neck. You just have to know the patterns and how they relate to each other. So it's a good idea to get familiar with the patterns as individual patterns, then play up one pattern, down the other. For example, going up the A shape, coming down the G. So we'll go up the A shape, there's the root. Up to the G shape, come down the G shape. Now we're in the G shape, we'll go up the G shape, slide up into the E shape, into the D shape, up into the C shape. From the C shape into the A shape again, back into the G. And then we've covered the whole neck in C major. If you want to relate it to another key, it's very easy because you now know the caged rule. You now know where all the major chords are. If somebody says to you, for example, we are in G major, it's very easy. You say, okay, what are you looking for? G is the root, so let's find G. From open E, F, F sharp, G, right? We know that building a chord on there, we get an E shape. Little trick is if you're on the E string, it's always the E shape. If you're on the A string, it's always the A shape. If you're on the D string, it's always the D shape. If you remember that, you can't go wrong. Okay, let's go back to G. G, so we're on the E string, E shape. What shape fits with that? The E shape, major scale. So I can play. I just played the 5 patterns running one from one into the other. It's not difficult to do if you know your patterns really, really well. And that's what you have to do. You have to know these patterns extremely well. Okay, the next thing to remember is it's no point in knowing all the notes in the scales and not knowing how to use them. It's like having a big vocabulary and not understanding grammar. It doesn't matter how many words you know. If you can't string them into sentences, you can't make sense. And it's similar with music. If you can't make sense of the notes, it's pointless playing just hundreds of notes. It gets boring. What you've got to do is you've got to learn to phrase them, put them into nice sentences, if you like. So if you've got a couple of notes, maybe I'm taking them from the G shape in C major, and you can't, it's boring to just go. Sounds like you're practicing, which you probably are. It's better to just arrange them in a nice way so you can get a musical feel out of it. So you can go. Okay, that's it. Just I played the same notes. I just arranged them slightly differently, gave them a little bit of dynamic, and it made a little bit more musical sense.